I'm Preston with Titan Fuel Tanks, and today we're installing a Trail Trekker 2 on a 2020 Jeep Wrangler. Once you got your Trail Trekker 2 opened up, you want to make sure you got all your parts. You're going to have a large bracket, a small bracket, your ground strap, a hardware kit, warranty packet and instructions, and a shaker siphon. This install will be a little bit different because this is not a factory tire carrier. This is the TerraFlex carrier, Alpha HD carrier, so it is going to be a little bit different than a factory setup. First things first, we're going to want to remove the third brake light. On this, it's quite simple. Go ahead and undo the clasp, and then I get a little pick and undo the connector. One other step we need to do to prepare for the Trail Trekker 2 is we need to remove the camera mount. On the TerraFlex mount, it's 3 Allen keys, and what we'll do is we'll undo this. Now that we have the camera bracket off on the TerraFlex Alpha mount, we're going to go ahead and undo the camera and undo the connector for the camera, I should say. Now that we have the camera undone, we can go ahead and set this off to the side. All right, so on this, we're going to now install the large bracket into the tank. So the large bracket sets in there, and then what you can do is just get a couple bolts started to hold it in place. Now that you have the bolts started in the tank and in the tank inserts, you're going to want to go ahead and tighten those to 17 foot-pounds. Now that we're going to focus on the small bracket. If you're installing this on a JL Wrangler or a 2018 Plus Wrangler, you're going to select the 5-on-5 bolt pattern, which are these holes here, and you can go ahead and press your studs in. On these, we ended up getting a set of washers and pulling the studs in with an impact wrench. The next item is a pass-through for the camera cable. We drilled a hole using a step bit in the center of the bracket so the camera cable can go through the center and still be operational with your factory camera. These steps can be done with basic tools and should be fairly simple. Now we'll start working on the small bracket. In order to get the small bracket prepared for installation, you're going to need to press your studs in, and depending on what application you have, the instructions have a template on which bolt pattern you're going to choose. On this particular version, it's a 2018 Jeep Wrangler, 2018 Plus Jeep Wrangler. We use the 5-on-5 bolt pattern. Also on this, that is optional, we drilled a pass-through hole for the camera cable. The next step, we're going to install the ground cable. The ground cable can be mounted to the body by removing one of these bolts that hold the tire carrier on. As you can see, we need to adjust the back spacing on the tire carrier. The tire carrier is not sitting flush, and you can see the tank is tilted back. So what I'm going to do, I'll remove the tank real quick, adjust the tire carrier to the proper back spacing, and this may take a couple tries, but it's not too bad, to get the tank to sit where it's up against the bumpers here and sitting tight against the Jeep. In order to adjust the back spacing of an TerraFlex Alpha HD tire carrier, you're going to loosen this bolt and then the 410 millimeters under here, and then I slid this outward toward the back of the Jeep about, I want to say about an inch, and that should give me enough space to get the Titan tank situated on the back of the Jeep. As you can see, the back spacing is set properly because the tank sits nice and straight and is flush against the mount. So what we'll end up doing now is we'll fasten the nuts and torque this down to keep this solid. One thing to remember is make sure you grab your third brake light wire and your camera wire and feed it through the channel. Now that you have these torqued at 55 foot-pounds, we can now move on to the small bracket that holds the tire and wheel. What needs to happen is each of these holes is a different setting for back spacing. On this particular Jeep, I know that this will mount on the very first hole for the correct back spacing. When on your vehicle, it may be a little different depending on what back spacing and tire setup you have. One thing to note is you're going to want to make sure the tire preloads against the tank. You want all of this nice and tight so nothing makes any noise, you're not getting any unwanted squeaks or anything like that. I'll show you how that's done right now. Once you have your wires passed through, what you're going to want to do is take your cross bolt and you're going to want to torque that to 40 foot-pounds, and then take your jam nut with lock nut and tighten that down to 20 foot-pounds. Now that you have your wheel mount bracket on and the tank and everything's fastened and tight, now while you have the room, you can do your ground cable. What you're going to do is you have it attached to the body. Go ahead and attach it to the grounding stud up at the top of the tank with a Phillips screwdriver. So on this particular setup, we ended up using some washers behind the camera mount because there's some Allen heads behind there that are interfering with the bracket. But with a little bit of washers, it's able to sit flush, and now we can install our tire. Now that you have your tire on, make sure your lugs are tightened to 65 foot-pounds, your camera and third brake light are plugged in and ready to go. And go ahead and give it a shake, make sure everything's tight, and then I'm going to show you how the shaker siphon works and how to transfer fuel. Alright, I'm going to give you some general instructions on how to use shaker siphon. First things first, go ahead and remove both caps on your Jeep. Go ahead and throw the shaker siphon down to the bottom of the tank. And then what you can do is you throw that in there. Now there's no fuel in the tank at the moment, but if you're to have fuel, you just hold it, then you're going to shake that up and down. Fuel will start coming through, and then you'll be able to transfer several gallons or how much ever you need to your main tank. One thing to note is once the fuel starts flowing, you don't need to shake it anymore. Well, that's a wrap. Now you're ready to hit the trails with 12 extra gallons of fuel. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call, and maybe we'll see you out on the trail.